The Renaissance was a period in European history best described as a cultural revolution. Europe was coming out of a period known as the Dark Ages, where European culture was seemingly frozen in time, both literally and figuratively. Europe was dark, the climate was cold, and the people were ignorant in terms of academics. Many of the kings were illiterate during this time period, signing decrees with an X because they couldn't spell. Unlike many African cultures who didn't scribe because they felt writing was evil, the Europeans just didn't know how. The Dark Ages were from approximately 476 to 800 AD. It was marked by frequent warfare, tribes warring against other tribes with virtually no culture or urban cities to speak of. Overlapping this time in European history, a significant event took place in mostly southern Spain, then eventually the whole of Spain. In 711 AD, an Islamic Moorish faction crossed the Strait of Gibraltar onto the Iberian Peninsula and conquered the Visigothic Christian Hispania. Led by General Tariq ibn Ziyad, they brought Iberia under Islamic rule for the next 750 plus years. Unlike most invading armies, the Moors didn't pillage and plunder. In fact, they helped to pull Europe up out of the Dark Ages I spoke of. The Moors brought a concept of hygiene, as the Europeans thought bathing was evil. I'm not joking. There are many books written on this subject, including Daily Life in the Middle Ages by Paul B. Newman. The Moors introduced new scientific progress in astronomy, chemistry, physics, mathematics, geography, and philosophy. They introduced carpentry, shipbuilding, paper making using hemp. They built numerous castles and mosques. Most of this knowledge came from ancient Egypt. Moorish advancement was so great that universities like Oxford owe them a debt of gratitude. Their initial curriculum was always distinguished because of its heavy reliance on textbooks produced by the Moors. To be fair, there were many Arabs involved in this takeover, but we know the original inhabitants of Arabia, which is not a race, were dark-skinned Africans. This isn't to say there were no fair-skinned Arabians, because there were many. But this isn't about them. The Moors held sway in Spain right up until 1492, when Queen Isabella and King Ferdinand expelled all the Moors and Jews from the country. Take notice how this coincides with the start of the Renaissance period. After receiving all of that ancient Egyptian wisdom, Europe was ready to take off. You gotta give them credit. They were paying attention in those damn classrooms. Learning, planning, and scheming. Once Europe got on its collective feet, a lot of the prosperity in regions like Italy demanded self-rule, transforming wine country into prosperous city-states. Known as the Rebirth, the Renaissance marked a new way of life for the people, though it was witnessed more in culture than actual politics. Historians would credit this to a reclamation of Greco-Roman period of art, science, and philosophy. They conveniently omit the fact that Greece admits that they got the bulk of their knowledge from Africa and the Egyptians. When paying close attention, one will notice this new world order we talk about. Well, the first one was during the Renaissance. This is when Europe went about removing any sign of African influence. They changed names, places, changed land borders, history books, laws, and art. This was the true iconoclast. Images you see today that show classic Greco-Roman work from ancient times aren't ancient at all. They're nothing but whitewashed, reworked images, not 3,000 years old, but more like 300 years old. Famous men like Michelangelo, Donatello, Raphael, Leonardo da Vinci got famous because of their wonderful renditions. Men like William Shakespeare, Plato, these images are educated guesses at best, and at worst, totally made up. The Renaissance period was erasing African greatness and inserting European racism. Now, this isn't to suggest Europe doesn't have greatness. Great men, invention, history, and great achievements. To the contrary, the fact that they do is why I find the behavior so mind-boggling. What's happening now, though, is their lies are catching up to them because they painted themselves into a historic, Eurocentric corner, so to speak. It's like putting your finger in the hole to plug the dam. As the dam erodes, eventually you run out of fingers. Every culture, race of people, and continent have contributed to this world we live in. Quite frankly, that's nothing to brag about right now. But the point is, it seems all of Europe and Asia are in collusion to hide dark-skinned people's great legacy. The Chinese and Japanese get a bite of the pie. The mulatto race in the so-called Middle East get their piece of the pie. And white Europe gobbles up the rest. Even in the Americas, they deny any black footprints. Yet, if you study the Renaissance, you'll see how a new world order works. How a people in a matter of 300 years, and even today, attempt to systematically remove an entire group of people from history. The Bible, which is a book belonging to dark-skinned people, to Leif Erikson being the first to discover North America. All of their so-called firsts leave out one very important caveat. It should state the first European to discover North America. The first European to circumnavigate the globe. They weren't the first at anything, but they're definitely the last.